weird sound. Welcome, welcome. Let me know where you're watching from. Nepal, Ghana, I see you. Trying to help y'all see a little bit. What's up, Clifton? Knoxville, I see you. Let me see, can I bring this up here? Birmingham, I see you. What's up? Trying to pull this up where I can see y'all's comments. Netherlands, I see you. Nigeria, I see you. If I ain't already spoken. I'm not a prodigy. All right. I think we're good to go there. What's up, Powell? Come on around, y'all. There we go. There we go. All right. Now I can see you. All right. So what I got going on? Hello to everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Everybody can see me. Everything is cool. Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. Give me some thumbs up. Let me know. I want to make sure everybody can hear me really good. I don't want to feel like I'm wasting anybody's time. So yeah, I'm looping this section of my song, as you see in the title, Trust Your Own Ears. I wrote this song probably about 9 years ago. The song is called, thank you, Ebenezer. This song is called Groove Man. And it's from my first album, actually. It's on 2 albums. This is the remix version of it. Groove Man showed up first on the Journey Continues album. If you have any of my music, or you've been following me for a while, you definitely recognize this song. This is like one of my first tunes that if you've heard me live, you've probably heard me play this song. But anyway, this is a section of the song. Myself and Brian Carson wrote this section. A good friend of mine, a keyboard player, phenomenal. He's playing keyboards and organ on this song. And it's just something weird. This section in the solo section that we came up with, these chords, I couldn't name the chords if I wanted to. I honestly don't know what the chords are. I just know they sounded good. We liked them. It was very different, and it made us think different as it pertains to the soloing and all that kind of stuff. I think initially on the original record, the saxophone player, Oliver Santana, he soloed over this, and it was amazing. So I'm just trying it and just kind of going through it. I've played it before, and I've soloed in this section over these weird chords. And sometimes when you come across things that are like very weird like this, or like in a live situation, you don't always get to know exactly what the chord is. You sometimes have to just trust your ears and go with what you're hearing. So a lot of times I'll intentionally not sit down and try to learn, okay, what is the name of this chord? Now, I don't try to complicate things for myself. I know, as for me, I play primarily by ear, and of course, I can communicate certain things to, as a band director, to the musicians that are in the band. But a lot of times, I'm not trying to complicate things by, trying to worry about the chord names and all that kind of stuff. It's like I play the music, kind of like now. For instance, most of you don't know, but I'm writing a book right now. And so for me, just getting the ideas out and getting them down are the important things. Worrying about the fine tuning and what exactly is this, and making sure everything is correctly punctuated and all, I can go back and worry about all that later in the proofing. But right now, it's important to get the idea out and make sure that I have the idea and I'm able to communicate the idea clearly. So that's more important to me than focusing in on, what's the name of the chords and that kind of stuff. What brand is your bass? I thought it was a Ken Smith, but it looks, yeah, this is it's a Serene bass. I'll type that in the comments since I can actually talk to y'all in the comments right now. Let me see if it'll let me do it. There we go. Serene. All right, Serene bass. That's what it is. So all right, so let's jump back into it. This song again is called Groove Man. I was just playing around with this solo section, kind of waking my hands up this morning, just seeing how many crazy ideas I could come up with. No problem, Thomas. So these are the melodies we're working off. This is called a fret rap by Groove Gear. Helps you to mute unwanted noise. And I already know, again, and y'all are going to probably have to help me out in the comment section. I know later on in this video, as people chime in a little later, people are going to start asking me, well, okay, what are those chords you're playing? What's the name of those chords? In today's lesson, I'm not focusing on like chord names and all that kind of stuff. It's more so about using your ears and seeing what you hear, as opposed to dissecting everything and being so theoretical about everything. How are you, best of gospel basis? Moses, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. but yeah, I'm just using my ear these chords, and I'm first listening to the these chords, and I'm first listening to these chords, and I'm look at that, my sound came on my computer. All right, so I'm listening to these chords, and I'm listening to the melody and seeing what I can pull out of all these different things before I start trying to dissect. I'm just listening and say, okay, but all of this is over A flat minor, so it's a really weird sound. It's on the way, Ebenezer. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress, so bear with me. I'll definitely keep you guys posted. So it's really weird. So when you have something that's weird like that, sometimes it becomes hard to think, what do I play over that? And that goes back to really, really developing your vocabulary and hearing, because when you hear like a George Benson or some of these virtuosos play, hopefully you're not sitting there trying to analyze and figure out every single chord they're playing as far as theory. Some of you, that might be a strength for you, and you're quick with it in order to identify chords. But a person like me, from my background, I didn't come up theory first. I came up with trust your ears, listen to what you're hearing first, and try to repeat what you're hearing. Don't so much worry about the theory. And so I know it's a clash of two worlds, because I know I have a mixed audience on here this morning. So I'm not saying one is bad or the other is better. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying in certain situations, in the world I come from, you kind of get thrown into situations where it's sink or swim. So you have to figure it out there on the spot and see what ideas you come up with. And the more you explore, I was live on Facebook yesterday. If any of you guys are following me on Facebook, you may have saw me on my personal page. I was live. If not, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I don't go live as much on Instagram. I'm gonna try to work on improving that, but I will definitely be here every week on YouTube unless something happens to change that. But I was live last night, and somebody was asking me. I was playing through one of my other tunes, and someone was asking me, "Man, how do you get that comfortable with your fretboard?" And one of the answers that I gave him was basically getting comfortable with hearing yourself and trusting yourself, trusting your ears, getting comfortable with what you play, getting comfortable with your interpretation of the music. You may not sound like me, you may not sound like Jocko or sound like Victor Wooten, but you have to learn to get comfortable with your interpretation of the music, what you hear in the music. Be comfortable with what's coming out of your own ears and what's coming out of your own head, or what's going into your own ears and what's coming out of your head. Be comfortable with trusting that and knowing that it's okay, even if everybody else doesn't like it. Because what I'm playing now, my solo choices, I'm pretty sure another bass player would approach this, like a Hadrian Farad or someone like that, would approach this completely differently, and they would have a completely different perspective on what should go over these chords from a theoretical standpoint. But for me, I'm just hearing what's in my head, what's inside of me, and I'm expressing based on what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling. Do you approach bass lines the same way you do solo? Maurice, I no, I'm saying no, but I'm trying to think at the same time. Good morning, Bruce. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. When it comes to the bass line, it's less technical. And I say I'm not a technical player, but sometimes I do get technical. But with my bass lines, I'm probably more intentional with my bass lines than I am with my solos, if that makes any sense at all. And I mean more intentional because I'm trying to establish a really solid groove, and I'm trying to make sure I keep something memorable when I'm playing bass lines. So when I lock into a bass line, I'm trying to make sure I stick that pattern every single time. Now, there are things that happen in between my bass lines, and I might try to, embellish in between, but for the most part, I'm trying to think structure when it comes to my bass lines. Because if you've heard me on, do you think patterns versus notes? I'll get to that. But if you've heard me on some of my albums or some of the more gospel stuff that I've done, like when I'm playing, some of you guys tuned in a few times when I was playing, I used to play at New Birth. I was playing there, and if you heard me on some albums, some records, that kind of things, if you heard me with Canton Jones, I'm playing more of the patterns. I'm trying to play more of songs, things that people identify quickly. So if I'm playing like this song, the bass line of this song is really simple. That's the whole bass line of the song. Now the old bass line, the original bass line for this song was. So a lot of times my approach, even with a song like this, we're kind of, when we get in this solo section, it gets all over the place. But I love in my music that I create, I hate to say my music, but the songs I write, I like to have, even if we decide in a jazz fusion, or if it's more jazzy, we decide to go way left field. If you hear my music, there's almost always some element of simplicity that's there, because I want even if I have a lot of really technical fusion players listening, I know I'm going to have normal people who are listening, and I always want that element of something that they recognize to be, I always want that to be prominent in the song. So it's always an element of something that they can grasp, even if they don't understand, all of. If they don't understand all of that, they do understand. Everybody gets that, You know what I'm saying? That repetition. I see somebody popped up saying something about that repetition and the feel. It makes a groove. Yeah, that groove, they're gonna recognize that groove. So there's always some type of element of simplicity. So to answer that question about the bass lines, and do I think about the bass lines the same way I think about solos? I try to free myself up when I think about my solos. I try not to think at all when it comes to my solos. Because if I think, when me personally, this might not be for everyone, but me personally, when I'm playing solos, if I start thinking personally, I get in my own way. And I've said this before. So when it comes to me soloing, I try my best not to think. I just try to hear what's coming out of, I'm saying my head, but what's coming out of my heart. And I try to play and match that, what I'm hearing. And I try to, the hardest thing for me for the longest time was to match what I was hearing with, match the things in my head, what I'm hearing with my hands. That was the most hardest thing for me when I was learning to play. Because I would hear all of these things and I couldn't play it with my hands. And then it flipped for me for a while. It flipped to where I started learning a lot of chops, and I could play more stuff than I could actually think about. So it got weird for a while when I really started putting in a lot of time and I started learning a lot of chops. It flipped, it reversed, and I was focusing more on what my hands were doing than actually hearing the music. And then at some point, it clicked for me to where the two became one, to where now my hands connected to what I was hearing in my head. And when it comes to my improvisation, now I'm like able to just, sync it instead of worrying about, okay, this chord is such and such. Like I don't think about that. I don't trouble myself. I don't give my brain a heart attack trying to figure that out anymore. I used to do that, and it used to cause a lot of anxiety for me. So when I took all of that stuff and all that worry and trying to think and trying to figure out, trying to be theoretical, when I took that off the table, it completely opened my world of playing for me. I know some of you guys think you have to be super theoretical in order to make a good solo, but my best ones started coming about when I stopped thinking about what it is I'm playing, and I just started playing, and I started enjoying, trying to be in the moment rather than trying to analyze and be too analytical. So let me get to some of y'all's questions, or some of y'all's comments rather. All right, somebody asked me, G Coffee says, do you think patterns versus notes? So I hope in all of that rambling, I answered that question. So yeah, I'm in some senses, I'm probably more of a patterns guy. We got to be technical about that. I'm rarely thinking notes. I'm only thinking notes when I'm playing bass line and when I chart a lot when I'm learning songs and I'm playing on a professional setting. Well, all of it's professional, but when I'm playing for a band, let me say that when I'm being when I'm being the foundation only, and that's majority of the time, I'm thinking more notes, I'm thinking more numbers, that kind of thing. So I'm focusing more in on that when it comes to me playing the foundational role, and I'm not worried as much about improvisation at all when it comes to those type things. And it just naturally comes because after put so much time in and you have the chops under your hands, you kind of start learning after a while. After you become comfortable with trusting yourself, you start learning how to implement some of those things into the groove and that kind of thing. So when I think groove, it's definitely more pattern. It's definitely more pattern driven when I'm thinking the groove, pattern and notes, whatever. Let's see here. Thanks, my guy. I cannot pronounce your name. Sis, I'm gonna call you Sizwe. Thanks, my guy. You are cooler than cool, and you are beyond teaching notes to give us the whole life of a musician, especially when you told us not to give up. Man, it's my pleasure. I can only share with you what I've personally been through. So anything I share with you guys, I probably at some point have personally dealt with it. So if it's helping you, I'm really happy to know that this stuff is helping you guys. That sounds good, man. Fat sounding bass. Appreciate that, Thomas. I love the simple one. Feel and repetition makes the groove. Absolutely. So you were commenting to what I was talking about earlier. Powell, Scotty says, good morning, my brother, talking about trusting your ears. Do you have perfect pitch? I don't. Surprisingly, I don't have perfect pitch. However, I said this before, my daughter has perfect pitch. She has the whole shebang. Where she hears and colors and all that kind of stuff. So my daughter's very young. She's still developing her gift. I don't have perfect pitch, but it's pretty close in terms of relative. I can hear, I put it like this, if my guitar is a little out of tune when I'm playing, it'll drive me up the wall. If the slightest out of tune. Sometimes I try to get through it depending on the situation if I don't have an opportunity to tune my bass in the song, meaning like slightly tune it. But if it's off, it will drive me crazy. Like my guitar player, when I was directing a band before, my guitar player, he used to laugh at me because we would be in the middle of a song and I could hear one of his strings out of tune and I could pinpoint exactly which string it is that was out of tune, and it would always have him tickle. It's just I have been blessed with really good ears. I don't have perfect pitch. But yeah, I have been blessed with good ears. So thank God for my ears. I can hear almost everything. And that for me, my ears were developed. Now, I will say that my ears weren't always this tune. It's something you can develop. So I say that I was blessed with good ears, but many of you are as well. And I don't want to make you feel like you can't develop that. It can be developed. Your ears can be developed. The more you listen intentionally and try to work, your ears begin to develop over time. But you have to like really, really be digging in and really be putting in the work. And you have to be listening intentionally for stuff. And it comes with mentorship and being around people that can help you and people that can point out certain things that you're doing wrong. You have to be open to listen to correction, because if you don't know that it's a problem, you don't know to fix it. There are things I was doing as a player when I got into some musical situations, overplaying and just playing stuff out of turn. I didn't know that I was doing the wrong thing, but as people pointed it out to me, kind of hurt my feelings, kind of killed my pride. But when I listened to those things and corrected those things, now I became aware. It's like your parents telling you not to touch a stove because it's hot. You don't know right then that it's hot, but now that they tell you it's hot, or if you make the mistake like my daughter did, my 2-year-old did this the other day. We were all sitting in front of the fireplace talking or doing something, and she got up, and it's like we were just talking, and she just randomly got up and touched the metal part. We didn't even have a chance to say anything to her, and she touched the metal part of the fireplace. It wasn't scalding hot, but it was hot enough, so she put her hand up there, and she quickly sat back down, and my wife and I were laughing because like we had to tell her to sit down then, did we? So it's like, once you have been made aware of something, it's like now you're in tune. So now when she goes to something, if she gets to it and it feels a little hot even before she puts a hand on it, she knows now, don't touch that. And it's the same way when it comes to music and when it comes to developing your ears. Now, until you've had that experience to where maybe somebody embarrassed you or something like that, you didn't know that you were doing something that was wrong. Or if you've been in a situation musically to where you played something and now you hear that it doesn't match with the chord in time, where you was playing in your room and everything sounded great when you was playing over just, over a solid note, but now you hear all these different chords and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't work, so now you're hearing what works and what doesn't work. So you begin to develop your ears and you begin to hear things in context. Keyword: context. Once you begin to hear stuff in context, you can develop, and now you know what sounds good. After you tune your bass for so long and you can hear this versus, you kind of learn, okay, I can hear those waves. It's training your ears, listening to the difference in what a note sounds like in tune and out of tune. Let me see here. If you want to tune your ears, that's a good way to do it. Like just tuning your bass with harmonics, listening for the waves. Hear those waves? And now what'll happen over time as you do that often, like sometimes put the tuner down. I mean, get the first note, get the E or get the G, however you tune from, ascending or descending, it doesn't matter. Get the first note with your tuner. Put your tuner down, use harmonics to tune your bass, and start listening for the waves. This is way I'm giving you some ways to train your ears, because some of y'all, man, you can't be trained. Yes, you can. I'm telling you, I'm a living witness. You do this because my mom is a bass player, as a lot of you don't know that, but she taught me. She was a bass player first, but she taught me how to tune my bass just using. I was playing guitar at the time, but she taught me how to use the top note and tune the next note. That's the old way we learn how to tune. We come down to the to the second dot, so to speak, eighth position. And that's how we learn to tune guitars and learn to tune our bass. I didn't have a tuner for years. I tuned without a tuner. Another one of my secrets. I didn't use a tuner for years. And I would normally just use a piano to reference pitch. And that's another thing. Once I got that E on the piano, I had it from there. I get that first, that first note. Granted, my bass is not tuned in E, so now it would be E flat. That note is E flat for me. But I would use that first pitch, and I would go from there using my ears. And what you're listening for the waves. Now, a lot of people don't talk about this, but this is something, way you can tune your ears. You can learn to listen for the waves, and that's how you know what works and know what doesn't work. Even if you can't play it, you can hear it now. So once you start to key in on, okay, this doesn't work, I'm hearing waves there. Something is not working. So you want the sound to be flat. When you hear those waves, that's when it's doing something weird to your ears. Now, I later learned to use the harmonics to tune, which to me seems a little bit more accurate than doing this. Harmonics, you can hear the waves a little more clear. You see what I'm saying? So you can hear those waves a little more clear. All right, so let me get to some more of these comments here. All right. Zacchaeus, I think, is where I'm at. Hey, can you show me a cool over the bar lick to do on a 1-5-6-4 progression? I don't know, man. You put me on the spot. Melvin, what's up, man? Good morning. That's where I am right now. So you got to take me back. So let me know in particular what you're referring to, Melvin, because I've said a lot of stuff. So just come back and let me know which place that you're saying you're at right now. Precious Joshua says, can I ask a question and how do I get a reply to it? I'm not sure what you mean. So Hopefully your question is something that I can answer. Go ahead, shoot. If it's something that's cool and not, probing, I will answer. Maurice, my pleasure. Ant, what's up, man? If you're still on here, patterns, basses, and drummers have to remember that and groove. Yep, it's all about those patterns when you're locking with the drummer. And so that's what I was talking about earlier, playing the bass line when I'm focusing more on being the foundation. Most of the time, I'm locking with the drummer. And thank you, Ant, for pointing that out because that's something that I didn't even bring up. But yeah, I have some drummers. I love playing with good drummers. Me personally, I love playing with good drummers. And my thing is, even if I know the song and I know the rhythm of the original song, I'm always listening. Bass players, make note of this. I'm always listening to what my drummer is doing. In particular, his kick drum pattern. Like, just say a song, a really simple song like how great is our God? For some of you that don't know that, it's a very simple song. So, how great is our God? Sing with me, how great. 6 is our God. All will see how great. 4, how great is our God? My voice sounds terrible. It's early. Don't worry about it. So, like, the song is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. Whole song. Basically, like, I'll be watching you. Sting, Police. Almost the same progression. But my thing that I'm listening for, because I've played in many environments, if you're in a more gospel environment, gospel drummers have the tendency to create their own grooves for songs. And it's cool, it's the culture that we can get away with stuff like that in gospel. In more CCM driven cultures, more contemporary Christian cultures, you can kind of play the record as it is recorded. So they're going to play and over a groove like that, you can get away with that because that groove is included in those pulses. Boom, 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 boom. You know what I'm saying? So you can get away with that. But in a more gospel setting, in the more black church, for lack of better words, we might play that groove and completely flip it. So in that sense, my drummer would be doing something. He would be playing a pattern more on that feel. So I'd be trying to match what he's doing with his kick drum to just make sure my bass line is matching his kick drum. So you don't have to do it on every single song. And as you listen to more music, and that's the key, guys, listening to as much music as you can, you'll begin to understand context. Context is a key thing there in making sure that you're locking with the drummer and that kind of thing. So didn't mean to go off on that, but yeah. So thanks for that, Ant. You made me think about that. Question: as a bass player, how do you prevent from being drowned by an organ player? I had that before in one of my clinics. Somebody talked about that. Well, the biggest thing is hopefully your organ player will either stop playing the pedals. If you're playing the song right, hopefully your organ player will either stop playing the pedals or turn the pedals down. And hopefully you can convince your organ player to turn the pedals down. If not, you're kind of warring because that organ, depending on the type of rig you have, if you're in a small church, normally the organ player is going to win. Just being honest. If you're in a smaller church, unless you got a nice size rig and y'all are warring in there for volume, the organ player most of the time is winning because everybody's going to hear that organ. So you're going to get lost in the mix. So the best thing is to figure out some type of compromise with the organ player. Like, yo, just let me handle the low end. You do what you do up here and take your feet off those pedals or either push them in or something like that and turn the volume down on your pedals. But in that sense, you have to make sure, I noticed for some people, organ players, especially more older organ players, they're used to playing by themselves. So it's a habit for them. And sometimes they're not even aware that they're playing over you. So, and I've had it happen to me several times. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll pick my spots. I'll fall out in certain spaces. If I can't communicate with this organ player to stop playing the pedals, I'll play around what they're doing, or I'll try to find what they're playing and I try to match that. Even though I know the song, if they're playing certain passes that are wrong and I can't convince them to change, rather than creating a train wreck for everybody, I'll match what they're doing for the sake of the song. Because at the end of the day, it's about sounding like a team, sounding like a unit. So if that person is not playing what's right, even though it's irking me, when in Rome, do as the Romans. So hopefully this is a situation where I don't have to play with this person every week. Before this situation, I'm going to make sure I'm matching what they're doing. So I'm always listening. I'm not taking this role of, no, you're playing the wrong thing and creating a whole bunch of tension where we're bumping heads because I know how the song goes. This person doesn't know how it goes. No, you want to listen. You want to listen. And the song, at the end of the day, in the moment, you don't want to sabotage the moment by doing quote unquote what's right and somebody else is playing what is wrong. In these situations, for you guys who have no clue about what we're talking about, a lot of times in church music in particular, more gospel settings, it's more free flowing. Music is left a lot of times to interpretation. It's left a lot. So that's why you can find a lot of gospel musicians who are very good at improvising, because a lot of the music that we play from a gospel background is left to interpretation. So that leaves a lot of room for improvisation at times. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about just completely soloing all throughout a song, but you do have a lot of improvisation moments that happen in the song. So naturally, we can understand that a little better because that's the culture. A lot of times you can learn songs, and my uncle had a saying back in the day when I first started playing guitar. He had a saying that, all right, we will listen to it, but we're gonna play it our way. I'm like, what does that mean? It means that, okay, I hear what they're doing, but I'm gonna kind of learn the song. And in a sense like that, you're dealing with people who are not necessarily professional musicians. No disrespect, but a lot of these people are hobby musicians, and they do this on the side to help out their church, and this is just their outlet to play somewhere where they're just kind of helping out. And when you get musicians who have the I'm helping out mentality, as opposed to musicians who I do this for a living, this is how I survive, or this is my calling, this is my passion, it's a different mindset. So when you award against those different mindsets, you'll stress yourself out trying to argue with that. So you'll do better to just kind of fall in where you fit in those situations. And then when you get to the place where you can play with musicians who are a little more skilled, now that's when you can really dig in. I hate to say it that way, but for years, many people don't know, I played in churches where I was playing with hobby musicians. And that was just the facts of the matter. I had to go through those situations. But when I got into situations where everybody was a professional on the stage, I had to come up. I had to do my homework. I had to learn the songs, because you have to just kind of pick and choose your battles when you're in those situations. And I hope I'm helping somebody with this. Y'all give me a thumbs up or something to let me know you're being helped by this. But when you're in those situations, you have to pick and choose your battles as it relates to what you're going to fight about, or what you're going to be upset, or what you're going to stress over. It's not worth the stress that comes with trying to make sure that everybody is right just for the sake of what? It's not always, it's not always the thing to do. So I'm just kind of giving you guys hopefully some nuggets, so you don't stress yourself out in the process of playing with people who are hobby musicians as opposed to playing with people who are professionals. Ant said relative pitch. Hopefully I answered that, Ant. Indonesia, what's up, man? Hey, I don't want to take up all the time, but how can you explain to someone? Okay, how can you explain to someone like Goucher, who plays a lot but still keep it groovy? Okay, I see what you're saying. How can you explain someone like Goucher? Goucher has great placement, and most gospel bass players learned a lot. If you grew up in the '90s, or that kind of in the early 2000s, you heard Goucher on numerous albums. And the fact that Goucher, his name and he's played on so many records, speaks for itself. Andrew Goucher is like a legend in his own right. people like him and the late great Joel Smith, who I never got an opportunity to meet. But people like that, man, they learn the art of placement, and it comes from culture. Being able to explain that comes from culture. Now, I put it like this: the way that Andrew Goucher has played basically his entire career has gave birth to a lot of the gospel bass players that you hear now, who are playing and adding all the licks and adding all that kind of stuff in the groove. Goucher kind of was one of the guys that brought that over to gospel. You know what I'm saying? Being able to add that improvisation, being able to add those licks and everything, but still keeping that solid groove where you didn't feel you didn't feel the groove lost at all. I mean, he just knew what to do. And that comes again from listening and finding and picking your spots. Him and my friend Jonathan Dubose, another genius guitar player. Most people don't know he plays bass too. But those guys were notorious for just playing songs and just knowing how to find their spots and pick their spots and drop the perfect thing in the spot. So in those situations, in those scenarios, it's like when you have people who just know how to listen and pick great spots and just drop this. Okay, we're playing like just finding little spots. I know that's a bad example. Just finding a little spot for the groove to just drop, drop a little comment here, or drop a little thumbs up there for social media terms. You know what I'm saying? It's like, all right, I got this going on. This groove feels pretty good. It's no different from a drummer doing a feel. That's the best way I can explain it. Because a drummer is going to find a spot. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I play drums too. So, you know what I'm saying? A drummer is going to find somewhere to put a feel in the song. Now, a really seasoned drummer will find the best place. Okay, he's already listening once the pattern is established. He's listening for these little key places that he can put some feels. Okay, there's nothing here. I'll put something there. There's nothing there. And sometimes it's not always about the fact that there's nothing going on in the spot. It's like, can I complement what's going on in this spot? So it's not necessarily, okay, I'm going to wait till I have a wide open space and then I'm going to take it. No, it's not always about that. Sometimes that's cool. You can find a moment in songs, but oftentimes in songs, the whole song has something happening. So you got to find a moment. Okay, where will this line or this lick or this idea be most effective? Just even something down to a slide. Something like that. Like, don't put it in the middle of a phrase. Like, sometimes you can end a phrase or begin a new phrase with the slide. You know what I'm saying? Just find a good place to put that thing that you're trying to add into the song. So that's just one way I think about it. Like a drummer, they're thinking like drummers. They're just finding their placements. And so for years, bass players were so used to. We were so used to doing that. Then people like Jameis, or having just a regular move, if you're more of a jazz head, having a more moving bass line. But then cats like Jameson came along. People like him came along who are adding that stuff in between that continue to carry the groove. So it's all about just kind of listening, trusting your ears. It goes back to the topic, trusting your ears. And listen, I'm really trying to get through a lot of these comments. I really hope I'm able to. All right, Ebenezer, would love for you to talk about when you use the slap and mute picking. It's the song, man. The song always determines that for me. The groove and the song determines that for me. I know some players, that's their thing. They're like just slap players, and that's pretty much their go-to. Most people don't hear me, you know what I'm saying? Most people don't hear me slap a lot. It doesn't mean I don't. It's just, it depends on the song. I'm more of a fingerstyle player, but I do slap. If you hear me in a gospel setting, you hear me slap probably more than you thought I would, because it depends on the groove of the song. I'll let the song determine what I'm going to do. If I'm going to do mute picking, I'll let the groove determine that. Like if it's a more mellow groove, You know, if it's more mellow, I might go mute picking there, but I allow the song and the moment to suggest that to me rather than me having my own agenda. Like, yeah, on this song, I'm just going to be going to town slapping. It's like I try as much as I can to allow the moment and the music to determine what I'm going to do in that moment. You know, of course, we already have a plan. You make a plan, but at the same time, you want to be open to the moment. You want to be open to the music. You want to be open to what's happening so you can be present in the moment. And the things that you choose to play complement the song really well, as opposed to superimposing what you want to do. Like, I'm going to just be slapping on this song. Because some songs might not call for that. And sometimes your slapping might be too aggressive for the moment. Even though that song calls for it, what do you do when they tell you to break the music? You can still slap. You can slap soft. But sometimes, depending on the song, it can be too aggressive. And sometimes that slap might give you the thump, however you want to call it. It might give you the amount of aggression that you need to raise the intensity of the song. It could be a really mellow song, and you can add that pop or that thump in there and raise a little bit of the aggression and the intensity of it. So I try, for me personally, I try to let the moment in the song dictate that. Your voice ain't that bad. So you talking about me singing earlier. What's that? Scarabi? Is that greetings from France? What's up, man? All right. Can't hear anything. Is that everybody or is that just you? I think everybody else can hear. Papula? Peter Paul? Can you still hear? These are good tips. Thank you. Sure thing. Helping. All right. Peter, I think everybody else is hearing, man. That made a lot of sense, Jermaine. Thank you. I'm playing with different level musicians in these bands, and it totally makes sense. Cool. I'm glad this stuff is making sense. All right, I'm gonna play through this song. I ain't really play. I started talking like early, so I'm gonna play a little bit. This song is Groove Man. Groove Man Revisited. There are two versions of Groove Man. If you don't have it, go get them. Get them both. It's one of them is on The Journey Continues. The second one, the one I'm about to play, is on my album Grooves and Ideas. They're on Spotify, they're on Apple, they're Amazon, they're everywhere, you know, wherever you can find them. Pick up these songs. So, all right, here we go. Groove Man. Hopefully I remember everything. All right, here we go.
Yeah, I gotta practice that again. Like I said, guys, this song is probably about probably about 9 years old, and so I've done like several versions of this song. So trying to remember all of it. Civilized based conversation. Thank y'all, man. I really, really appreciate the love. The drummer for this song is Carrington Green. The percussionist for this song is Ricky Burkhead. Actually, he's the percussion instructor at Ole Miss, University of Mississippi. Keys, all of, like organ and Rose was done by Brian Carson, phenomenal organist. And who else do we have on this song? Oliver Santana, the saxophone you didn't hear, but that's Oliver Santana that's playing the saxophone on that song. And I think everything else was me. I have trouble soloing over chord changes. Any tips that can help? You probably gonna have to go back to the beginning of the video. I spent a lot of time talking about that, Gabriel. Sorry. Good morning from New York, David. What's up, man? But yeah, the main thing that I was kind of sharing, I'm not gonna try to go back into all of that, but the main thing that I was sharing is just trusting your ears, man. Learning the solo over chord changes is identifying what, because I know somebody else might be wondering the same thing that came on late, but learning to identify what's happening in the chord and just seeing what you can get out of it. Like, if, for lack of better words, this is the Jermaine Morgan version. Stop being so technical. There you go, I said it. Stop being so technical. Some of the things that hold a lot of you back, and I'm saying this because I was guilty of it. I was trying, when I heard people do certain things that I wanted to do, immediately your mind becomes technical because you're trying to figure it out. You want all the answers and you want them all right now. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know how you're doing it. How did you do it? What chord did you play? It's like you start cramming all of this stuff. And how do you eat an elephant? It's a rhetorical question, obviously, but the saying is you eat an elephant one bite at a time. So you take the little bit, and I talked about this on another post, but you take the little bit that you know and you start applying it. Application. Take a little bit, apply, a little bit, apply, a little bit, apply. You don't just try to eat the whole thing in one sitting. It's like certain things you're not going to figure out right away. I wrote this song 9 years ago. And when I wrote the song, as much as I like this section that we did, that little 9 years ago when I wrote this song, I was terrified to solo over there. I would not solo over that part for nothing a long time ago. But now, as I've matured, as I've grown in my playing, I wrote the song. I knew what the chords were, but I wouldn't solo over them because I was overthinking it at the time. But like I said, over the years, as I matured in my playing, I found out, it's not so bad. I can just approach it this way. I can approach it that way. I can approach it from the standpoint of these weird chords. Or I can just play dominant over it. You know what I'm saying? I can do that and get away with that instead of making everything so complicated. So when I would have opportunities over the years, as I was solo on the song, you know what I'm saying? Like, instead of trying to find the most complicated solo in the world, I played what I knew. So over this section, I'll try to give you a rundown really quick of the history of how I played over this particular section. Simple. Now, all of the stuff that I'm playing right now is all like dominant. Let me see here before my computer goes off. I can still see your comments here, but let me see this here. That is so awesome information for us, brother. We needed that, man. Scotty, my pleasure. So yeah, just again answering that question. I started with what I knew. How did you get to that level of awesomeness? Did you do a lot of structured, efficient practice, or just play a lot with others? Both. Um, which advice would you give at 4, 5, 6 strings? Let me see here. Which would you advise on to get a 4, 5, 6 string intermediate pro player? Um, it's up to you. 4 will probably be less confusing when you get started, but I wouldn't spend so much. If you only want to play a 4, okay, cool. But if you have a desire to go to a 6 string, I wouldn't spend so much time only on a 4 string. Or if you have a desire to play a 5 string, at some point you need to get a 5. If you know you want to play a 5 string starting off, get a 5 string. If you know you want to play a 6 string starting off, get a 6 string. It's really up to you, to be honest. There is no right or wrong way. I know we have the purists that feel like 4 no more, but that's personal. It's up to you. You can the thing about learning the 6 string, you can always go back down to 4. You know what I'm saying? Or if you learn a 5 string, you can always go back down to 4. But going from 4 to 6, yeah, you got to kind of relearn stuff over again. It seems like once you get to the 6 string, but it's not that deep, guys. You just add 1 extra string. You add that, you add that low B string if you want to go to a 5 string, and then when you want to go to a 6 string, you just add an extra high C string. And with the bass is I'm not gonna say bass is an easy instrument, but bass is one of the most common sense instruments to play, in my opinion, when it comes to understanding everything. Because guitar is more complicated chord structure wise than a bass is. Bass, everything is in line. You can do everything. You know what I'm saying? Everything is right in line with the bass. And so it makes a lot more sense on the bass, no matter if you're playing a 4, 5, or 6 string. It's like if you're doing a run on a 4 string, you only have these strings to work with. If you're on a 4 string, that's all you have to work with. But if I have a 6 string, I can start a little higher up and go a little lower. Well, if I got a 5 string, I can, start in the same place and go a little lower down. You know what I'm saying? With a 5 string, I got that option. But with a 4 string, this is all I'm stuck with in this particular key, just to be clear. Because I know people say, hey, you can do everything on a 4 string that you can do on a 6 string. True, to some degree, depending on the amount of frets you have and the amount of space you have to work with. But when it comes to certain extended range stuff, you're not going to be able to get that on a 4 string. Now, am I saying something's wrong with a 4? No, not at all. I like a 4 string. I like a 5, and I like a 6. It depends on my preference at the moment. But like when you have a 6 string now, where I'm starting this line, now if I move that to 6 string, now I just got more options, and I have to do less work to get there. Now, can I do that same thing on a 4 string? Yes. I can do it on a 4. I just have to change positions. But that 6 string kind of gives you access to that real estate without having to go all over the bass to do it. Some people say it makes you lazy. That's a matter of preference. If you choose to be lazy, you're going to be lazy on a 4, you'll be lazy on a 5, and you'll be lazy on a 6. But if it's more expressive for you to get a 4, 5, or 6, I can't recommend either one or the other, because it's a matter of preference. You have to know what you want and why you want it. Like if you prefer 6 string, to me, there's some numbers that seem a little extra for me. I personally don't see the need for, a 12 or 20, 18 or 24 string bass, but that's not me. So I'm not going to down a person who's playing a bass that has, however many X amount of strings. If they're getting a job, they're getting paid, they're gigging, they're traveling the world doing what they want to do, more power to you. Play a 36 string bass. If you're working and you're happy, good for you. I'm not one to promote
one or the other. I'm just saying you have to learn what works for you and why. Make sure you're not doing it because somebody else done it. My favorite player plays a 4 string, so I'm not gonna play anything. Jocko only played a 4, and that's all I need. I see some people, I see memes and stuff all the time. That was Jocko. Jocko was being him. You know what I'm saying? Jocko was being himself. Jocko played a 4 string because he was being himself. No, I didn't say. So don't take what I said out of context, guys. Somebody said Victor Wooten has limitations. I get the sarcasm with that. Absolutely not. I'm saying where, and I got to be careful how I say this. Absolutely not, because we know Victor Wooten is one of the greatest bass players in the world. So is Jocko. So is Marcus Miller. All 3 of the guys play 4-string basses. I'm just saying, in terms of being able to do a certain thing in a certain position, you're not going to start here and do that same thing on a 4-string. What I'm saying, I'm not saying you're limited because you play one or the other. I'm saying in a certain position, it's easier to do it here on a 6-string where you have all this real estate to do it right here. Now, you could do the same thing on a 4-string. And so you got to keep going down. All I'm saying with a 4-string, you have to kind of pick and choose what you're going to do and be a little bit more clever with it. I'm not saying that you're limited because you play a 4-string. So hopefully you guys are hearing me clearly in what I'm saying. And I hope my words don't get twisted, because that's why I said and answered it the way that I answered it, just for the purists that might be on here to think, okay, you can do anything, you can't. Guys, I have 6, 5, and I got 6, 5, and 4. So it's I'm saying that it is totally, it's totally up to you what you choose. Vic is not limited by any stretch of the imagination. I have, however, as a gospel bass player and as a session musician, there has been instances, and let me say it. I think this is. Let me read the comment. No, I wasn't responding to that last comment. Nah, yeah, March. So, yeah, I was just saying, man, it's not saying that if a person is not playing an extended range bass, they are limited. It's just in some certain settings, it might come across that way that you are limited. And I know there's an oxymoron to what I said earlier, but I've been in some situations, and hear me clearly. I've been in some situations as a professional, because you know me for YouTube, but I am a professional musician. I've been in some situations to where the producer or the music director prefers to have that low B string. Now, rarely am I in a place where anybody asks for the C string. It's rare that I go anywhere that somebody asks me for a 6-string bass. Now, I have been in plenty of positions that people want the low B string. They want to feel the low B string. And with the 4-string, there are ways around that you can kind of fake out that low B string by doing power chords. Like, but if we go, you can kind of mimic that with a 4-string by playing power chords and kind of somewhat creating that low B sound. But you know what I'm saying? It's ways around it. What's up, Nathaniel, man? There's ways around to work around it. But like I said, I've been in a lot of situations to where that B string was asked for. That low B string was asked for. So you just have to kind of know why you're doing what it is you're doing. Victor Wooten is a solo player, and the genre of music, the genres that he played, doesn't really require that low B string. From what I've observed from Victor Wooten, I can't speak for Victor Wooten because I'm not him. I'm a fan, but from what I've observed in my years of watching him, the music that he's played, he can get away with doing it on a 4-string. That's all he needs. Jocko, the music that he played, he could get away with doing it with the 4-string. That's all he needed. But the music that I play, I kind of need that low B string, especially in a lot of gospel settings. There are a lot of gospel bass players that only play with 4-strings. But a lot of the settings, professional settings that I was getting paid, they wanted that low B string. So, yeah, it's preference at the end of the day. Hopefully I answered that, and hopefully I didn't come across any kind of way. But I wanted to just make sure that you guys understood the difference there. Absolutely not. I think Thomas was referring to me, and as he said, it's a matter of preference. Yeah. Can you give an example of a 1 to 6 lick? I play old traditional quartet music, and I have trouble doing it. I might get into that, Clifford, on next week because I'm pretty much at my time now. 1 with the 5 on top. I don't know what y'all talking about. But so yeah, like I said, I'm pretty much at my time. I really hope I've learned about as it pertains to trusting, because the topic today is trusting your ears, being able to trust what you hear. Let me see here. What's your thoughts on gospel-based players playing in nightclubs with the intent to make money outside of church? Have had to deal with a similar issue. I try not to get involved in that because I've done it myself before, and I'm not promoting it and saying it was the best thing. And when you go to bigger cities, I guess the nightclub quote unquote scene is a little different than it is from rural Bible Belt areas. I'm from the Bible Belt, by the way. But like I noticed the culture is completely different when you get to bigger cities and people say quote unquote you playing in a nightclub or whatever the case may be. And you're doing stuff, and if you're a professional musician, and I'll say it, let me answer it this way. I'm not saying I promoted me. I got out of that world because I didn't care for what I was being exposed to, and it wasn't strengthening me in my personal walk as a believer. Being in those environments didn't help me in areas that I was struggling in. And it's up to personal, because people play up for R&B acts and they do all this different stuff. But at the same token, I have played and been on stage with some gospel people, and even in church situations that appear to be pure and appear to be the good thing and appear to be like we're doing all this holy stuff, and behind the scenes is just as corrupt or even more. And I really don't even have time to get into this conversation, but it's just as corrupt or even more corrupt than it was out there when I did certain quote unquote club or nightclub gigs. Not to say I prefer the church environment. Me personally, I prefer that more. And I don't even say the church. I prefer an environment where I don't feel like I'm being influenced to do something that's against my nature or something that's against my character. It's all about your personal conviction. It's all about your character. It's all about your personal integrity. Don't do things that you think that are compromising your personal integrity. If you feel like your personal integrity is being compromised and you are a believer, then you should believe that I don't have to do certain things in order to make money. There are other things that I can do as a musician. And hence me, that's why I started doing other things that created income for me and my family. Because I didn't want to do certain things that everybody else was doing. I didn't want to go to a nightclub and promote the bar. I don't drink. So I don't want to be at a place that one of the requirements of me being an act is I can, continue to promote the bar all night. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to put myself in a situation that causes me to have to compromise who I am. I'm not going to encourage people to drink because I don't drink. So it's up to me. It's up to your personal conviction as it pertains to, because I could really talk about that a lot. Most of you guys know I do workshops and this kind of thing, going around the churches and working with their bands and working with their worship team and talking about worship. Some of you have seen some of my videos where I deal with some of that stuff. But I'm not talking to you from a place that I don't understand, or I haven't been in that. I haven't had to do that because, I needed the money right away. In those particular times, my faith, I would say, for me, I was in a place where my faith wasn't strong enough to trust that God would provide in another way that I didn't have to do that. So at the time, as I was maturing, I did those gigs. And they've been other gigs that I've done as a solo artist to where it hasn't been in a Christian setting. I know the intentions of my heart when I go in there. And I know I'm strong enough in those environments that I'm not going to go in there and get tempted or go in there and get infected by what's going on. I can go in there and affect the culture as opposed to being affected by their culture. I don't have to, let their culture completely affect me or change me. I can go in there and bring my culture and change the environment of where I'm in. But if I'm not in a place to where I can control the environment, meaning I'm the main guy on the stage controlling what's happening, if I got to go in there and play cover songs and just be a side guy all night, no, I'm probably not going to do that because I know I can't control anything but the bass. That's all I can do. And I got to play things that I don't necessarily agree with. So, again, guys, I could do a whole live on that subject because I'll be here all day talking about that. And what we don't want to do, and I'll leave this, we don't want to fall into the places, musicians, or as people who work with other musicians, you don't want to fall into that trap of condemning people for what they do because everybody's not where you are. And some people have to make decisions. One of the things, my mom used to work at a convenience store when I was younger. My mom was a minister and she sold alcohol. And I think it's very similar. She sold alcohol because that was her job. She was trying to take care of her family. That wasn't the only thing she sold. There was other things in the store, but they happened to sell alcohol. And to me, that's no different from working at Red Lobster or working at a restaurant that they do things that you don't necessarily agree with. That's what the organization or that's what they do. You're in a world that's full of sin. You're in a world that's full of darkness, but we pick and choose based on what it is, especially when it comes to musicians. People are a little more picky about musicians and what musicians do. But it's like at the end of the day, it's about your heart. It's about the intention of your heart. And if you're being affected or if you're being infected by these places that you're allowing yourself to be in, well, yeah, you probably should find you something else to do. If this is affecting the way that you do what you do, yeah, then you should probably really look at what it is you're doing. But if you're being effective at what you're doing and you're actually helping people when you go and you're sharing the love that's on the inside of you and people seeing what's inside your heart anytime you go, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I could really spend a lot of time on that, and I know this conversation is weird for some of you guys because everybody on here is not a believer, and I understand that, and I respect your decision. But as for me, this is what I am. I am a solo player, and it's. I'm glad you brought it up, and I really want to table this for my next talk. I really want to talk about this on the next live, if we can, because we need time to actually dig into this. I've seen some comments pop up, and I feel like if I dig into these comments, I'm gonna be on here for another 30 minutes, and I really don't have that to be on here. But yeah, I just it's about personal conviction. If you're a person who is trying to really build a relationship, build a walk with Christ, you do your own soul searching. The Bible talks about let every man work out his own salvation with fear and trembling. You know what I'm saying? So you have to look at what you're doing and look at how it lines up with your purpose while you're here, what you're actually supposed to be doing. You have to look at that personally. How do you feel? Does it irk you when you're playing certain music that you don't really want to play? And it's all about the check and it's all about the money. You know what I'm saying? Like I gotta make this money. I gotta take care of my family. So is your faith, now don't take this the wrong way, but is your faith limited that much that you feel like this is the only way you can make money? Or do you feel like the same man that gave you the gift, the same God that gave you the gift is able to give you ideas and creativity that will sustain you, that you don't have to do things that compromise your integrity or compromise what you personally feel or your personal beliefs or your personal convictions? Now, does that mean you got to run around and only play at church? No, that doesn't mean that. That's not what I do. But I have found other avenues where I can be helpful. I found other avenues where I can add value to people and not compromise who I am. It's all about you personally compromising who you are, not by somebody else's standards. Let's be clear. Not by somebody else's standards, because everybody's standards is different. Everybody's view on religion is completely different. I don't consider myself a religious person. I'm a believer, but I ain't concerned about religion. So and the arguments and all that stuff, I don't have anything to do with that. I don't have time for that. I'm about purpose and about why I'm here and about being as effective as possible in every area of my life while I'm here. And being, doing the stuff that I can do while I'm here. It's not about religion. It's not about a church. That's a whole nother conversation, guys. I didn't come on here for that. So hopefully I've answered some questions. And Sean,
some light on that particular thing. I'm gonna try to read some. All right. Ah, man. Yeah, I missed a lot of stuff. I'm gonna try to read through some of this quickly. Very instance, the string thing. Okay, Thomas, I see you. Thank you so much, Jermaine. I'm blessed, God, by this. Man, I'm glad you're blessed, Ebenezer. Power chord you were talking about. I'll try to Terrell, if you come on next Tuesday, I'll try to deal with that. Great opinions about the preference and bass choices, Jermaine. Thanks for being candid. No problem, Will. Thank you for being on here. Nathaniel, working on That's the Way of the World solo by Mr. Pencil, and it's really testing my ear. But it's fun. That's the thing about it, Nathaniel, man. It's gonna be fun. The more you stretch, you get more comfortable, and it'll be more enjoyable. Ben Diaz, my pleasure, man. March, how do you feel about musicians playing? About it? I do and I don't. So I'll leave it at that. So it's personal preference. It's personal conviction. Um, yeah, I'll just say about that. But we can make adjustments and exceptions when it's something we prefer. Now, if it's a song we think, oh man, they shouldn't be doing it, it's like, man, like I don't think they should be doing that song, and they shouldn't be playing that in church. But you don't know, like a lot of the grooves that you're playing may have originated from like a James Brown groove or something that was really funky. Now, if it's something you like playing, oh man, that's really funky. You ain't necessarily thinking about James Brown at that moment. But the fact of the matter is that groove came from a James Brown influence. So that's why I say I have an opinion, but I don't have an opinion on that. I think it's apples and oranges at this point when you start talking about that. So, because we can get nitpicky and we can start picking out stuff and pointing fingers, saying you should do this and you shouldn't do that, and the lines get really, really blurred. So, personal preference at that point. Um, really helpful, man. Love the subject of being a musician while being a man of God, and the choices you make. Thomas, man, thank you. It's my pleasure. In a worship service, March. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Natalie. I've been so blessed by the talk today. Where can we find your workshop videos? There are a few on my channel. It's very limited. And if any of you guys are interested in me coming to your church or your organization and working with your band and doing a clinic, I am accepting dates. So send me an email, Jermaine@JermaineMorgan.net. I got booking on my website. If you want to go to my website, just go to JermaineMorgan.net and we can talk about me coming to your city or your place to do some of these workshops, some of these seminars that I'm sharing. Like, I don't only share with musicians, I share with singers as well, you know, the entire worship team, the worship department. So I'd love to come in and do this seminar with you guys. And like I said, I share at schools and all that kind of stuff. Some of you are educators. I share a lot of this stuff at schools, but I'm very experienced in working in ministry as a musician, music director, you know, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd love to come do that. So send me a contact. Let's set it up. I'd love to come in on a Sunday morning, play at your church, be a guest artist as well. I'm open on Sundays. I can finally say that I'm open on Sundays. Some Sunday, Creflo Dollar Church. So yeah, let's see here. Man, I'm trying to get through all these comments. I'm way over my time, y'all. Y'all got me. Personal integrity comment was on point, bro. The also brief comment concerning how the all right. I don't know if I'm connected. I'm trying to read through the comments. Let's see here.